Welcome. I'm Trish in Tucson, Arizona with Divine Journey Yoga. Today we're just going to work quickly through 12 poses that Dr. Loren Fishman suggested to help build muscle strength, which also builds bone. So let's go ahead and get started. We're just going to stand in mountain pose, palms together, and take 3 deep breaths. Slowly lower the hands and begin to step the feet wider and wider apart. You will need 2 blocks and a yoga mat for this practice. Coming into your wide angle pose, a little bit of bend in the knee, hands to the hips, start to lean forward into the pose, and you can stay right here, holding the weight of the torso in your legs, pushing into the floor, or you can place 2 blocks under your shoulders and lean into those. You want to lengthen through the tailbone, reach out through the crown of the head, push into the soles of the feet, squeeze the muscles to the bones, and breathe for about 30 seconds. You might start to go a little deeper. Never rounding the low back, keeping it flat. Just one more deep breath. You can let the head drop. And lifting through the back of the head, begin to rise, bringing hands to hips, a little bend in the knees as you nice and slow stand up. Take a moment to let the blood redistribute, come on out of your head, and turn the right toes out. We're going to move into Warrior 2. Bending the knee right over the ankle, make sure you can see your big toe. The back heel might kick back a little more, toes might tuck in a little bit as the arms rise up, and we hold for, again, 30-second count. And I know my breath, I take about 5 or 6 breaths in 30 seconds. You can look out over those fingertips, and you're going to want to begin to engage the muscles all up the legs, into the glutes, the core, even the spine, squeezing just gently, shoulder blades toward each other, opening that heart, lifting through the crown of the head, and breathing. You can always hold longer if it feels like you're strong today, but whenever you get tired and you know it's time, and you know you've been here for at least 30 seconds, you can start to lower those arms down, straightening the knee, turning the toes forward, taking a moment, lifting through the crown of the head, and then turning the other toes out, bending into the knee, making sure the hips are wide open, the back foot is comfortable, alignment of heel to the back arch, arms rise, and we breathe. Use those muscles. That engagement of the muscles helps to stimulate the growth of the bones all down through the legs and up through the pelvis and the spine. Keep using the muscles, especially on your back, as you breathe. Gently lower the arms, straightening the knee, turning the toes forward. We're going to start to heel toe our feet together, if that feels okay for your bones. As you come up to mountain pose, just turn up toward the top of your mat, sliding the hands down the thighs, bending into the knees, supported forward fold, reach through the crown of the head, out through your tail feathers, and gently begin to bring your hands to the mat as we move toward down dog. Stepping the feet back so that you're on the balls of the feet. And then we begin to lift through the tailbone, starting to sink the chest just a little bit, but we want to keep the elbows rolling forward and up, which kind of rolls the shoulder blades back onto the spine. You can let the head hang. We're just going to be here for 4 or 5 more breaths. Feel free to pump the legs or come in and out of the pose, down to table and back up again as many times as you need to. This pose really strengthens and stimulates all the muscles and bones on the back of the body, on the back side of those bones. Just one more breath. Dropping the knees nice and slow as the shoulders slide forward. Take a break of cat-cow. Maybe come down to your elbows and give your wrists a break as you rock the spine gently. This is the only safe place for you to do any rounding of the back if you already have osteoporosis or osteopenia. I'm just going to take another breath or two here. We're moving toward four-limb staff pose, also known as chaturanga. And my version of this is safe for those with osteopenia and those who are preventing, maybe a little too much for those who already have osteoporosis. I'm going to walk the knees back behind the hips, lengthen out through my body, so I'm a nice long line from hips to shoulders. Fingers pointing forward, walking them right under the shoulders as I start to bend the elbows. And I might not stay very long. I'm just going to slowly lower, holding just for a breath or two, and gently relaxing into the floor. This one we don't try to hold for 30 seconds yet. It's just too much work. We gotta work toward that, taking our time. So just take another breath. Feel free to rock those hips a little bit. We're gonna push into the knees and the hands and push back to table pose. Using those muscles. Good, we're just gonna stretch for a moment. One long spinal stretch through the tailbone, out through the fingertips. And then back to table as we move toward camel pose. We're walking the knees in. We're going to walk the hands up the thighs, facing forward toward the top of the mat. Backs of the feet are flat or toes curled under, which is my favorite way. I'm going to take my hands to my low back, the heel of the hand on the waistband, fingertips pointing down as if I'm going to slide them into some pockets. I'm going to gently squeeze the shoulder blades together, push down into my knees, and actually roll my thighs in and back as I lift my heart really long through the spine. Keep breathing nice and soft. This is another one where we're not going to count the breath. We're just going to watch the body, and we're going to come out as soon as we get tired, knowing that we are building so much strength across the front and the back of the body. Gently releasing, bending at the hips, bringing those hands back down to the floor. We're going to move toward child's pose. We're going to take a moment for cat-cow, and then knees wide apart, out toward the edges of the mat, big toes touching. We can sink the hips back, settle the belly down between the legs, and you can put a block under your head here to make sure the spine stays long, but you get comfortable. Or you might feel good putting your hands one on top of the other and your forehead down. Or again, reaching forward, nice long spine, forehead on the floor. And this pose doesn't feel like it's building muscle, but it is a really important pose to counter that back bend of camel pose. And it helps to really increase the flexibility in the hips. Let's just take one more breath. Bringing the head up, we'll walk the hands in back to table pose. Swing the hips a little bit. I'm going to turn sideways on my mat so you can see my gait latch pose. I'm going to just stretch one leg out to the side and then roll onto the heel, toes up as I walk my hands in and pulling the belly in to support the back. Walking up, toes are pointing up, shoulder, hip, and knee are stacked. And I'm going to lift on the inhale and start to roll sideways on the exhale. Maybe the arm slides down as I take the 30 seconds of breath here. And I might also eventually add the arm over my head, pushing down into the floor, lifting up from the waist. Keep breathing. Try not to lock this knee. A little bit of a bend in it if it needs it. And just a couple more breaths. This pose is really stimulating the muscles of the pelvis, the spine, and gently come out on that exhale. Starting to hinge at the hips, stick your tailbone back, bend the knee a little, and come back down to table, and we'll just slowly switch sides. Swing the hips and stretch out the other leg. Roll onto the heel toes up as you walk the hands in, flat back, belly engaged, stacking. It's sometimes you can go past the knee point here, so you never want to do that. You always want to make sure it's stacked here over the knee. Lift up on the inhale and then slide to the side on the exhale, keeping the side body open, pressing down into the floor through that heel and through that knee. This can be done seated, which is a really nice way to do that to protect your knees. And we can add the arm on top and just a couple more breaths. And you don't have to push into anything. Don't push into the knee for sure. Sometimes I can lean a little bit of weight into the shin bone. And just one more big breath. Slowly coming up, hinging forward, bringing those hands down and replacing the knee. Good. We're just gonna swing those hips side to side for a moment, kind of crawl forward and sink the hips over to one side. We're moving into our seated twist. So stretching the legs out long. We're gonna bend one knee in, and I'm gonna walk the hip back that's connected to this bent knee. I'm gonna walk it back, reach out nice and long with that long leg, turning the belly toward the bent knee. Other hand can come behind. So we're here, nice deep breaths. Definitely stay for at least 30 seconds here, if not a little longer. Engage that long leg, push out through the heel, let the muscles connect with the floor as the head reaches upward. All this beautiful stimulation right around the waist, the pelvis, the hips. Gently releasing the leg, turning forward, rocking a little side to side. I'm going to turn around on my mat. You can stay facing the direction you already are. We're just gonna bend up the other knee, reach out with the other leg as we start to kind of walk the hip back a little bit, opening up the twist so it stays pretty safe for that sacral area. Take a few more breaths, really level in the shoulders and long in the neck. And you can look over your shoulder, or you can even go in the opposite direction. Sometimes that feels good. This is our list of poses, so you can kind of follow along. Might be kind of hard to see. And just one more breath. Slowly starting to turn forward and reach out and rock a little bit. We're going to move into our pigeon pose. So I'm going to re-bend the other knee and take this leg back. So you might even come into kind of a zigzag pose. And then the front leg is going to just keep scooting forward and over to the side as the back leg starts to reach out behind you. And we're doing an upward pigeon here, squaring the hips forward, keeping the shoulders and the hips aligned. You might slide something up underneath you so that you can, so I have some air under here. Sometimes it feels good to have a blanket or a bolster. I'm just going to begin to stretch my legs apart, keep my heart lifted, maybe point those back toes, engaging the legs, really stimulating the muscles and the bones of the pelvis and the legs, and up into the spine as we breathe. Just one more breath. Starting to release and just roll onto the hip as you drag the back leg forward. We can roll into boat pose. So with boat, we want to make sure that the back of the body stays long, never rounding. Heart lifts up, chest up. We can tuck the hands under the legs and lean onto our tailbone and take those 30 seconds of breath. just one more breath. Slowly rocking forward, letting those feet come down. We're gonna swing the legs to the other side so we can do our other side of our pigeon. One leg going back, one leg folded in front as you start to scoot into the pose. Reaching the leg back, squaring the hips. You'll not want to do this if you have knee issues. Just skip this one and don't worry about it. We want to keep the spine long and tall, lengthening out as we breathe. One more breath, reach out through that back leg. And then roll onto your hip. Take your hands behind, drag that leg up. We're gonna roll over onto our side for our side balance. Just gonna reach out nice and long with the bottom arm. Let the knees be bent for a moment as you start to rest, or maybe prop your head up with your hand. Other hand is in front, and we start to stretch the legs out and let them rest. And this is really good. This is a simple one that most everyone can do. We're just gonna lift the top leg, push out through our heels, engage the core, and breathe. And notice the work here, we're wobbling a little bit side to side. This pose is really good for balance, and it's a really safe one. You can do it in bed. You're definitely close to the floor, so you're not gonna fall and hurt yourself. All of these poses are really meant to help prevent falls and the fractures that come with them. And maybe just one more breath. We're looking for that 30 seconds or maybe longer here. Just really working the muscles. And then relax the legs, bend the knees, take a break. And I'm gonna slowly push up and swing my legs to the other side. You can always just roll over. First we reach out, knees are bent, and then we start to straighten the legs. And maybe prop the head. Starting to lift the top leg, and I don't go much higher than the hip. That weight in and of itself is really powerful for the body. All those muscles in the legs, you can flatten up the feet, and you're going to use that leg on the bottom. We're pushing out and pressing down a little bit into that muscle against the mat. You can feel how that engages the muscles of the spine. Slowly releasing and maybe bending the knees again. We are going to roll over onto our back into Savasana. And you want to take at least a 2-minute Savasana, just allowing the body to rest. You can have your knees bent, you could have your legs up or on a wall or over a chair. All of those are really nice ways to settle that low back. The hardest thing on the back is going to be the legs straight out. Sometimes that just arches up the spine too much, and it's better to have a little bend of the knees, even like over a blanket or a pillow, or simply bend those knees and let them knock together as you breathe. With every exhale, getting heavier. With every inhale, drawing in new clean energy. And then letting it go. Sinking into relaxation. Savasana is for resting, surrendering, and gathering up all the gains that we have been given from our practice. Let's just take 3 more deep breaths. opening the eyes, wiggling the fingers, maybe rocking the knees just gently. You don't want to wake up too quick. The body likes us to go slow as we roll over. Take a moment for a little bit of gratitude. Think of something good in your life today. And then push up to seated, keeping that spine long. And we'll end our practice. Hands at the heart. Thank you so much. Namaste.